Welcome back to the lecture series on periodontics. In this video, we will be continuing our discussion on trauma from occlusion, specifically focusing on stages of tissue response to the increased occlusal forces. So tissue response is divided into three stages: injury phase, repair phase, and adaptive remodeling phase. So let us begin our discussion with the injury phase. When the excessive amount of occlusal forces are applied onto the tooth, these occlusal forces are transferred to the periodontal ligament area. Now, periodontal ligament area will not have the capacity to bear this excessive amount of occlusal forces, resulting in the injury to the periodontal ligament area. So what is a fulcrum? It is a point or the area on the tooth around which the tooth is rotating when it is subjected to the excessive amount of occlusal forces. So usually fulcrum is located in the interradicular area for a multi-rooted teeth, and for a single-rooted teeth, it is located at the junction of the middle and the apical third. So fulcrum is a point or an area which is present on the tooth where the tooth is exhibiting minimal amount of movement when it is subjected to the excessive occlusal forces. So this is a multi-rooted teeth. So in the multi-rooted teeth, the fulcrum is located in the interradicular bone, that is here. So when this teeth is subjected to excessive amount of occlusal forces, this is the area where the tooth is exhibiting the minimum or no movement. So here minimum or no movement happens, but the tooth is rotating around this fulcrum and it is creating the areas of pressure and tension. Let us see how this happens. This is a single rooted teeth. Fulcrum is located at the junction of middle and the apical third. When this teeth is subjected to excessive amount of occlusal forces, the tooth is rotating around the fulcrum. So this is the normal teeth where the periodontal ligament is uniform here. If you observe, periodontal ligament is uniform. But when this teeth is subjected to excessive amount of occlusal forces, the teeth is rotating around the fulcrum or around the axis of rotation. So this is how the teeth is rotating a bit. So when this teeth rotates around the fulcrum, then areas of pressure and areas of tension are getting created on the opposite sides of the fulcrum. So this is the fulcrum. On the opposite side of the fulcrum, pressure and the tension areas are created. Let us understand the pressure and the tension response. This is the pressure area and this is the tension area. Let us understand about these two areas in detail. When the excessive amount of occlusal forces are applied onto the tooth tends to rotate around the fulcrum and areas of pressure and areas of tension are created on the opposite side of the fulcrum. This is the pressure area and this is the tension area. So let us understand about the pressure area first. So pressure area first is slightly excessive pressure. So when the teeth is subjected to excessive occlusal force, it tends to rotate to the opposite side. So it tends to rotate around its axis, creating a slightly excessive pressure. So during the slightly excessive pressure, we see periodontal ligament widening, alveolar bone resorption, and increase in the blood vessels, and there is narrowing of the blood vessels. So let us see why the periodontal ligament gets widened. When excessive occlusal forces are applied, so in the pressure area, there is a compression of the periodontal ligament. Always tooth tries to escape this excessive amount of occlusal forces. So it tries to deviate from the normal position and it tries to occupy the new position. So in this new position, the periodontal ligament area is getting compressed. The pressure is being exerted onto this periodontal ligament area. So in order to avoid this pressure or the stress, what the body defense mechanism does is, it starts to widen the periodontal ligament area as a compensatory mechanism. When the periodontal ligament area is widened, then it will be able to bear the load and it will be able to distribute the load to the surrounding areas efficiently. That is the reason why body shows the periodontal ligament widening. And another point why you see the periodontal ligament widening is, so periodontal ligament is having some fluid in it. Periodontal ligament is having a fluid in it which is responsible for the cushion-like effect. So if in the areas of the pressure, this fluid is getting accumulated. Because of this fluid accumulation also, you see the widening of the periodontal ligament area in the slightly excessive pressure zones. Next, let us see why the alveolar bone resorption happens. This is the pressure area and this is the alveolar bone which is present adjacent to the pressure area. So if the alveolar bone is not resorbed, then the tooth will not have the space to escape from the excessive occlusal force. Whatever the occlusal force is taken up by the periodontal ligament is transferred to the alveolar bone in the same way. Now, alveolar bone will not be able to withstand this excessive amount of force, and you see micro cracks or the micro fractures can happen in the alveolar bone. In order to avoid these micro cracks and micro fractures, what body does is, it activates the osteoclasts in this area. So this osteoclasts go and start the resorption of the alveolar bone. So in the area where there is a slight excessive pressure, alveolar bone resorption is started. So when the body does this alveolar bone resorption, it will be able to create the space for the tooth to rotate and to escape the excessive amount of occlusal forces. And it can occupy a new position where the occlusal forces are normal. So this is a body defense mechanism in order to avoid the excessive occlusal forces and in order to protect its structures. And the last one is increase in the blood vessels. Why do we see increase in the blood vessels in the slightly excessive pressure area? So when there is increase in the pressure on the periodontal ligament, then the tissues over here are under constant stress and there is a damage which is happening. So what body does is it responds by increasing the vascular supply in this area. So when the blood vessels are increased in this area, this process is known as neovascularization. It is a body defense mechanism. So by this neovascularization, so here the damage has occurred and now body has to repair this. So in order to repair, the blood vessels are getting increased. So these blood vessels are providing the oxygen and the nutrients to the area in order to promote the repair. And the second change that you see in relation to the blood vessels is narrowing of the blood vessels. So why do you see the constriction of the blood vessel? In the pressure area, there is a compression of the periodontal ligament. So here this compression is directly reducing the diameter of the blood vessels. So because of this compression, blood vessels in this area are getting compressed. So in the pressure area, the blood vessels are getting compressed and the diameter of the blood vessels is getting narrowed. Next, let us discuss about the effects of the tension. In contrast, tension is causing the elongation of the periodontal ligament. So this is the tension side and this is the pressure side. On the tension side, you can see the elongation of the periodontal ligament. Along with that, there is deposition of the alveolar bone on the tension side. So when the greater amount of tension or the severe tension is applied on the tooth. So till now I have spoken about the slight excessive tension. Now when there is severe tension experiencing by the tooth, then you can see significant widening of the periodontal ligament. Along with that, you can see the tearing of the periodontal ligament. So because of this tearing, there is a hemorrhage and also thrombosis. Usually, what are the susceptible areas of the periodontium? There are certain areas in the periodontium which are more susceptible to the injury. If it is a multi-rooted teeth, furcation area is more susceptible. So when the tooth is taking up the excessive forces, the mitotic activity in the fibroblasts is getting affected. So if the fibroblasts are getting affected, then proliferation of the fibroblasts will not happen. Collagen formation is getting altered and also bone regeneration is not happening correctly. So there is alteration in the bone regeneration, collagen formation and the fibroblast proliferation. This state comes back to the normal only when the excessive occlusal forces are removed. So when are they removed? Either they have to be corrected or the tooth has to occupy a new position where the occlusal forces are normal. So to summarize the injury phase, excessive occlusal forces are causing the periodontal injury. So if these forces are not corrected, then it will lead to the widening of periodontal ligament and also produces angular bony defects. Another key point to remember is in trauma from occlusion, there is no periodontal pocket formation. So if this teeth is subjected to excessive forces from the occlusion, then you don't see any periodontal pocket formation because the junctional epithelium is not getting affected here. So you can see the pressure and the tension areas are formed. So on the pressure side, you can see the resorption of alveolar bone and hence you can see the angular defects on the radiographs. And you see damage to the periodontal ligament. Because of that, you can see the increase in the tooth mobility. But there is no pocket formation. If you found this video helpful, hit the bell icon below and subscribe to my channel and stay tuned to Tooth Fairy Tales for more dental videos.